And most of the things that are in the bill, they are very progressive, except subsection 5, where there is a challenge. And we are saying, we are realizing that there is a problem there. But atidi kuti zoita samai vanoti champupuri chasimuka. Iwo wofugura hembe wovhara kumeso kuti vasatoshorwa maziso. At the same time exposing herself. Saka tiri kuti yes, we appreciate there is a problem. Let's engage each other and say, how do we solve this problem? Tisati susu we know kuti kuba kwakaipa. Asikana wanzwa nezhara. And I know but also justify kuti wakanga une jara. Saka tiri kuti as a church, we are creating this space. This is just a small section of the church. And we have got a larger section of the church, and we are saying our doors are open. Come, let us talk. Interpret this law jargon. What are we saying? And there are a lot of good things in this bill. But subsection 5, yafana nenduru. Taura ya mombe batataza kuvisa nduru. Nyama yese yazoipa takati yazorasa nyama yose. Saka tikuti sa tikuda kuti nyama yese iraswe. Saka engage us as churches. This is just the starting point. As we go forward, we know that there are low terms ekuzonzi. Ma meetings aya anozoitwa after parliament yagara achikuchenda ma committees. You know, in our country most of the things are politicized. Vamwe varuma church avaendi ikoko kunotaura ma views avo. Saka tiri kuti as a church we are open. Come to us so that you can engage us and we can show you the direction, because this we reflect things theologically. Kuti pane says marriage was an institution that was instituted by God, but it is maintained here on earth. And on that marriage we are saying, where is God in everything? So we are saying, engage us and we will help each other so that we can come up with a bill that will be acceptable to the whole community and that we can preach and support what the parliamentarians and the government are saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think this is the time we have to close it up and give our panelists some concluding remarks. I know we still have burning questions and issues, but I promise you this is not the first and last time we are going to be engaging and discussing and looking at some of these laws. Sometimes we always blame parliamentarians for passing laws that we don't have an input in, yet we don't engage in such platforms, and this is just the beginning of most of the thing. I'll start with Archbishop Ndanga to respond, and then
Valentine.
Yes.
My apologies.
Okay.
There is a lady who's been burning to say something.
All right, that's fine.
Mashita zenyu. Ini ndanga ndiri kuona kuti shungu dzatiri kuona dzine vana muzvinafundo maloya edu ekuda kubatsira madzimai ishungu dzakanaka zvikuru. Ndanga ndiri kuti izo dai senyika yedu yeZimbabwe ndofunga nyaya iripo ndeyekuti tine madzimai akawanda basina michato yakaitwa sei yakaitwa registered. Chikonzero ndiri kufungidzira kuti vazhinji vari kushayiwa mari yekuenda kunoroora varume vazhinji. Saka kuti vaende kunoregister muchato wavo vasina kuroora hazviite pamutemo. Saka ini ndanga ndiri kuti handizivi kuti pangaitwa mutemo here unogona kubatsira kuti pfuma, nekuti ndo imwe inogona kuita prohibit vanhu kuti vaende kunoroora. Pfuma zvikurukurwe zvionekwe kuti at least munhu akaita chinhu chakadai kare kare zvainzi unogona kupa chipeneti kana kuti badza rekuratidza kuti munhu aita sei roora. Saka kana apa chipenete kana badza zvobatsira kuti aende kuna chief kana kuti kuna mufundisi, vabereki vachiziva kuti munhu uyu akaita sei akaroora, ari kuzikanwa nevabereki vemudzimai. Saka ndo zvandiri kufungidzira kuti ndo zvimwe zvinogona kutibatsira kuti zvive zvinoitika kuti lobola ive inonyatso kuongororwa kuti tingaite sei kuti tibatsire hama dzedu. Masvita enyu.
Aiwa Tatenda, and yes, indeed, so many burning questions, and in that order, Reverend Archbishop Ndanga, then Reverend Kanukanga, then I'll come to the chiefs, and to our guest of honor as well as our lawyers as well, so that they give us concluding remarks. So I'll ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to keep it brief, because we are running out of airtime. Thank you.
Tinotenda. Pane nyaya taurwa nemurorongo weku lawyers for human rights, women lawyers, and this one, yokuti titaure kuti tisakatoita sei. Indaona sokuti hatifaniri kutaura kutoita sei, because platform yanga isiri yokuti taure kutoita sei. Imba iri kutongotsva because 40.5 kupisa imba. Saka hatingambotaurirani kuti toita sei imba ichitsva. Tofanira kungodhira nemoto toenda kumba kwedu.
Now, Real Madrid head coach Zinedine Zidane says he had not disrespected Gareth Bale, and it was a club who wanted to sell the Welsh forward, not him personally. Bale did not play for Real Madrid in the 3-1 defeat to Bayern Munich in the International Champions Cup on Saturday, with Zidane revealing his absence was due to the club working on his departure.
Bueno, ese es el problema, y además es verdad que a veces mi español es un poco liante, pero bueno, voy a intentar hacer.
Woita maconsultations totaura manje kuti zvinofana kufamba sei. Akwete kuti tingatotaura pano kuti zvinofana kufamba sei. Because munoona vakuti no madi kurerutsira vanhu vanoda kuroora vazame kuti vabvise kana badza vozoti wouya. No, vanhu vatongori stubborn. Ndo chinhu chekutanga. Chechipiri, vana vacho vanoziva vanoda kuroorwa, haasi kuda kuroorwa. Saka iyi agenda manje yazouya ichiadressa exactly what those children want. Vati kuti madzimai, or they are not women. Mubhaibheri makatonyorwa kuti chirikadzi kana dzichiri diki ngadziinde dzinotsvaka varume kudziwanikwe, kwete kuti dziti hadzinoda kubatsirwa nevanoita zvimawidows. Haasi widow, ngawanikwe ukoko atibvire apo. Ndozvo zviri kutaura. Saka tingatambudzika nezvinhu zvedu izvi. Hazvinetsi izvi, vanhu vanoziva zvavari kuita. Mukatenderera munoona kuti vanhu havadi zvekuroorwa. But vakutamira manje kana mumwe afa, ende yeti akapiwa sheya yake achiri mupenyu, nokuti hatizvizivi kana asina kupiwa. Ndinotenda.
Thank you. I have three quick comments for the Ministry of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. One is that where you are wanting to come up with a law that is going to impact society, such as this kind of law, please consult key stakeholders. Number two, matambudziko maviri vavo haagoni kugadziriswa nemutemo. That's the second point. The third point is that when a law is crafted, the idea will be to cure some mischief. But as you seek to cure a mischief, don't be mischievous by creating more mischief. Thank you.
Use of words, quite interesting. All right, let's give it to the ladies before we come to the chiefs.
Thank you so much. Would like to thank God for this opportunity that we are able to discuss and expose some of the provisions in the bill. But thank God, it's still a bill and we are safe legally. Thank you.
Let's give you an opportunity to speak, please.
Now people think I didn't do church. No, I go to church. I agree with you, Shamanga Mshtawa. But second, we are concerned because these women are coming to us for a remedy. They want something at law. Dakagara nemunhu wachitaura mascenario akasiyana. Mazambo tu andapa ayakaya. They are just
right. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. That's reality. Let's accept it.
Yes.
Your views were agreed upon. That's the reality she's giving in the reality that she has. So let's respect that reality. Thank you.
Tichirabatsira handiti vakuya nemascenario akasiyana siyana akawanda. That's why parliament yakazoona kuti we need a law to protect vanhu vawandisa. Tinoparidza kuti tiri kuvakurudzira rorwai but there are situations which are just impossible. We should protect them because kana tichiti section 56 hatisi kudiscriminata munhu. Saka imimi kana muri kuprotecta akarorwa chete muchisiya uyo asina kurorwa, is that still munenge makuita discrimination iyayi? Handiti saka tiri kuti isusu in a nutshell, handiti section 40 ngaichinjwe wedding subsection 5. Parliament, that is my view. Handiti church yataura view yayo, machief yataura view yayo. We as women, we want to protect each other. Subsection 5 ngaichinjwe wedding because the wedding is creating more confusion and more mischief. But if that wedding is changed to say civil partnerships should not be entered by married people, however, it shall not be a defense to say that I was married at the time I entered the civil partnership, so as to deny the other party justice at the end of the civil partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let's pass the mic to the chiefs while we finish up with our lawyers.
Thank you. The last comment I would make, ikurudziro kwatiri tese to participate in the parliament process. Let us give our views. Kuti titaure tisingaenda mberi mafungiro edu dzimwe dzenguva mutemo unonyorwa nevaripo. So let us all participate when parliament is going to have the consultative meetings. Let us participate and give our views. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maita zvenyu tinoziva kuti zvinozisarira wakukadeyane ndoro chena. Isusu tinokurudzira kuti vanhu mukugara kwavo vatarise magariro avo vagowana vanhu vanovaroora. Zvaita zvakanaka kuti patiri kuitira panapa nzira iyoyi usiku hwese ine vana nzenza vakaparadza dzavo mereji varoda kuzouya kusenzesa bhiri iroriri seforeign currency yekutenga zvinhu zvemunhu akazvishandira ega. Saka tinoti zvinhu zvakaita seizvozvo hazviiti. Varoda kusenzesa bhiri semari yekupinda muzvinhu zvisiri zvavo. Ngapagadziriswe ipapo maita zvenyu.
Thank you. Mambo Makombe.
Ndatenda zvikuru. Ini ndoda kungokusiyirai tsumo mbiri. Nokuti tine maprofesa muZimbabwe ende tinozikanwa number 1 mukudzidza. Asi nekudzidza kwenyu ikoko hakuna kana tsumo 1 yamagadzira. Kana dimikira 1 rinoshanda kunze kwekuumba zvinhu zvaane nyonganiso. Vakuru vedu vakati nyoka inozvara mbavha nemuroyi. Hakuna mai wakambozvara hure kana mbavha. Ichoice yemunhu kwete yamai nababa mumba. Ivo vakazvara mwana akarurama anofanira kuita zvinhu zvakarurama. Sarudzo ndeyake yeupenzi. You are cursed. Endiso hatipinde munyaya dzekesi yako. Mababatisisa tsumo yangu. Yechipiri isu semadzimambo tinokupa iyo kuti ukadya matamba mahorwa munoziva unorutsa zvokuti pamwe unobuda musana nekurutsa ndiri kuti isu semadzimambo varume vana mune dambudziko muri kubvisa utongi hwemadzimambo kumaguta but ndiko kune dambudziko guru rekutora vana vari pasi pemakore 18 isu semadzimambo tiri kuti no to underage marriage hatitendere kudya matamba makorwa unorutsa varume siyanai netsika yekufamba muchitambudza tuvana kuti muite vakadzi hatitendere kuno kana kumaruwa kwatinobva kana uri mutemo wacho uri kuya mubhiru iwoyo uyo tiri kuusapota 100%. 40.5 non-starter muZimbabwe ndatenda.
Right, let's wrap up with our representative representing the Ministry of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Mr. Maniri. Maybe if you can give us a word or two as we conclude as well. And we shall have our conclusion as the team that was heading the plenary session, as some pointers that we did manage to pick during this interaction.
Okay. Again, Sumuke. Tinotenda nema views ema chiefs. Traditional leaders, they are the custodians in terms of the constitution. They are the custodian of our culture, our customs, and our traditions. Ivo panogadzirwa mitemo vane zvavanoti izvi zvinokanganisa tsika dzedu, izvi zvinokanganisa macultures edu, izvi zvinokanganisa our traditions. Your views are very critical. Pataurwa issue ma consultations that we should consult. Yes, I agree, and that's what should happen, and that's what happens. Recently, Kanamakambotuona Tabachi consult on the Child Justice Bill, proposed Child Justice Bill. Pamoraika Shkakwamurika, some issues there, but we were all over, in all sectors of society. But some consultations that were done, few consultations, key stakeholders that were consulted, and there was pressure from different stakeholders to say we want to see all the laws, marriage laws harmonized, and that we want to see this law going to Parliament. And there were also even some parliamentarians who had to pressurize the leader of government business in Parliament, minister, to say we want to see this bill coming to us. So it went to Parliament, and this is why it is now there. But the good thing is consultations are still going on. This is still raw law. Uchiri mutemo usatwa uchiri kubikwa saka kana uchiri kubikwa toona kuti ano izvi kamurai zvenyu chi kune vamwe vasiri kuuya saka vamwe vachauya vamwe vachida kuuya saka kamurai zvenyu poto tichiri kubika. But kana wazosainwa na president ndopaunozonzi uyu wamutemo takutotsvaga ma-amendments procedures. But for now I also want to take a view panenge pakuita public consultations, public hearings, nema portfolio committees in Parliament, because of our Parliament. So in the next 14 days or after 14 days, unenge wakutanga kutotaurwa nezvavo, and then potanga kuita ma-consultations. Tinokumbira kuti muite participate, but patinogadzira mitemo kaya vanonyanya kutarisa. If you heard from what they were insisting, tonyanya kutarisa kuti constitution inoti chii about everyone, and ndizvo saka chiti constitution yatakaita isusu tese, what does it say about everyone no matter the circumstances? Istochiona kuti how can we also afford the protection of everyone's right in terms of the constitution, but of course without infringing on the customs, tradition, infringing on the rights of others. But uyu mutemo uchiri kugadzirwa patarwa issue yema-statute instruments ekumana 1979, that is itoiti subsidiary law. Uyu mutemo kana wapo zvoreva kuti zvimwe zvese zvinenge zvisiri consistent with that act kana ya-act zvinenge zvakuvandudzwawo zvakugadzirwa kuti izvi hazvichaiti. Asi ndoda kutendai as ministry this is an eye-opener, and we take your views very seriously. But I think pamusina kuwaklika mati subsection 5 mangoti clause 40 subsection 5 zvazvoroti zvimwe zvese zvimusoroko tika 40 subsection 1 subsection 2 3 4 saka muti zviri right ka mati subsection 5. Okay. So the whole clause 40 needs to be looked at. Thank you very much. No, we take the concerns.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I'll give to Reverend Spenadi to put the conclusion to this. Some of the big pointers that we had this afternoon.
Well, thank you very much, Valentine. As we come to a close, we know this was a very emotive and contentious discussion, and this discussion continues as as the lawyers said. This is a process that's going on. We're going to have more public hearings on this particular bill. And as the Zimbabwe Council of Churches, we've given ourselves out to say we're going to provide the space for such conversations and discussions. And as such, we're going to be opening up our churches. We don't want this bill to be discussed in hotels away from the people. It has to be discussed in spaces where people feel safe to contribute and air out their views. And so to that effect, we're hoping to be working together with Parliament and also with other organizations like WILSA, Zwala, and other institutions as well, as we publicize and popularize this bill so that people get to say their piece and we take part in this in this lawmaking process. So one of the things that is interesting is to note that a lot of these parliamentarians and senators are members of our churches. So that is one other process that we're going to do, to lobby these vana vesangano havangaregika zvichiitika zvinoda kuitika zvataurwa zviyana madzishe. So we are going to continue engaging, and we thank you so much vafundisi wedu. I think paturikubva panapa we leave this place more enlightened, and I think this is going to be a starting point where we start to have this conversation. Nothing about us without us. Let us play a very pivotal role in all the laws. There are many bills that are going to be coming our way. Let us be engaged as citizens. Let us say our piece. Let's take part in the making of the laws in this country. So thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to hand over back to Valentine as we come to
allow me to say I'm excited to have the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation bring this discourse and discussion live to the people of Zimbabwe. For me, that's the excitement on behalf of the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation that makes me confident and happy to stand before you today. Your national broadcaster, state-run, encompassing ZBC TV, Radio Zimbabwe, National FM, Classic 263, Power FM, Kulumani FM based in Mulawayo, and Central Radio based in Gweru, broadcasting in the Midlands Province. And our online platforms that include Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, Instagram,
and YouTube. Our business as your national broadcaster, as a people-oriented public broadcaster, we are driven by the mandate to inform, to educate, and to entertain. All we want to do as a people-driven national broadcaster is to stick to that mandate without fear, without favor, without discrimination, without bias, without injury to anyone, no matter race, no matter gender, no matter creed, no matter any allegiance. We commit to stick to that mandate as prescribed by the laws of Zimbabwe. I want to say that this function is one good testimony of our strive and commitment to stick to that mandate. Our business is not to tell the people of Zimbabwe or any section of that population what to do because we are the national broadcaster. We want to give a voice to the people of Zimbabwe, all of them. Those who make the laws, those who are in by virtue of being Zimbabweans, deserve an equal voice, equal access to the platform of the national broadcaster. I want to come to the issue of our partnership with a credible and very important part of the Zimbabwean population, which is the church, ladies and gentlemen. The church is we saw it fit and wise to partner with the church to bring to the people of Zimbabwe important issues surrounding the proposed marriages bill, which is under amendment in Zimbabwe. And we partnered the Zimbabwe Council of Churches, and they came into strategic and smart partnership with your national broadcaster, the ZBC, to bring this discourse to the people of Zimbabwe. Today we are live on ZBC TV, your television channel. We went live on Classic 263 and live on your Radio Zimbabwe. And the comments I shall leave to the relevant stakeholders and to the relevant people. But I'm happy that the national broadcaster is fighting, is remaining committed to doing its job in line with its mandate. With those few words, allow me to thank several stakeholders in line with what I've been asked to do. Let me thank our honorable chiefs. We have two here. Surprisingly, they are both from Mashonaland East Province. Chief Chikwaka, Chief Makumbe, I'm told, is from Manikaland. So we have Manikaland and Mashonaland East. That means we have 8 other provinces that are not represented as far as chiefs are concerned. But allow me to pay tribute to the 2 honorable chiefs here for sparing their time in their busy schedule and coming to be with us for a couple of hours on a very important issue. Our Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, the Director, Constitutional and Parliamentary Affairs, representing the Permanent Secretary, Director Manire, thank you very much for coming on board to represent government and indeed the critical Ministry of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, and certainly hope that you heard for yourself what the people of Zimbabwe want. And accordingly, we will carry due process various church organizations presented to this gathering, starting with, of course, the Zimbabwe Council of Churches, Evangelical Fellowship of Churches. I see my brother, Reverend Dr. Thank you very much, my mothers, for all your hard work and your commitment to air views that will make Zimbabwe progressive. My learned sisters, we had Marita, Hilda, and Abigail. And you see it, there is a conflict within the community of women in Zimbabwe. And that's the entertaining part for us as your national broadcaster. If I was going to be on air, on radio or on television with my colleagues, Valentine, Rumbi, and our ZBC team, and I was going to tell the people of Zimbabwe, this is what is happening at Kentucky Hotel in Hatfield in Harare, some people may have had difficulty in agreeing with us as the ZBC. But in line with our modern best practice approaches, we want the people of Zimbabwe to speak for themselves and not put words into their mouths. And my good learned sisters, thank you very much on board for coming on board and standing your ground, unpacking this proposed marriages bill. And some people thought this is what is already law. It was a misconception. And we hope all what you exposed here, all what you raised, all what you unpacked will certainly be taken on board in the consult. And those coming from the legal fraternity. Our colleagues from the media, those who managed to attend here, and the people from the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation themselves, but allow me to pay tribute. I always wondered as a young broadcaster to, at some stage, meet Reverend Kuchera, because I used to hear his voice on radio, see his face on television, listen to him in his teachings of the church, Today I had that great opportunity to meet the legendary clergymen of Zimbabwe, one of them, and Reverend Kuchera. We pay tribute to you. Thank you very much for coming on board. God bless you. Allow me to pay tribute to our leaders of the ceremony, the directors of ceremonies. I hear at some stage and in some quarters they are being referred to as EDs. But that translation is not what you are thinking about right now. They are being referred to as events directors. So allow me to thank Rumbi Moyo, in Harare. Like it was said, as your national broadcaster, to stick to our mandate, to facilitate dialogue, to facilitate a voice for the people of Zimbabwe, and make sure we inform, we educate, and we entertain. With those few words, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to raise my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director, Radio Services, Mr. Robson Mandu. And of course, you know, we're always forgotten during these functions as EDs, as it were, events directors. Thank you. So usually talk thank you, but today I must say, yeah, I feel taller. But ladies and gentlemen, we must thank you very much for coming through and making time to be with us today. And we started off with a prayer, Rumbi, and I'm sure we should close it with a prayer too.
We definitely need to close it with a prayer.
So we'll have to call upon Reverend Fenga to come through to give us a closing prayer, and then we'll proceed with some more notices to come thereafter.
Ngati namate.
Program yembu.
Thank you.
zvinhu zvinoendika zvinhu zvine plan. Takapotanga kuti titombokorokwozawo but takaona kuti korokwoza nhasi inogona kuti wawana point wawana grey mangwana oshawa chinhu vhiki yose isha manje kurima continuous money production yako unogona kuprograma zvinhu zvako zvichiendeka nekurima.
When I started, I used to stay at this place, but I have now managed to build a state-of-the-art 14-roomed farmhouse and left my old place as a compound for my employees.
Ndopandakatanga ndichigara panapa, ndopandakavambira panapa, ndakatangawo chirima zvishoma nezvishoma, ndikavaka kamusha kangu akanchirima zvishoma nezvishoma, but ndaiona kuti zvinhu zvandiri kurima zvodi zvinodiwa zvichindifambira, ndobva ndakati iyo engine yamunonayo ndiyo ndakatanga nayo engine uno musha wangu ndopandakatanga ndichigara panapa, but pari zvino ndopandiri kuextenda ndopanogara vashandi panapa, ndopandakatanga ndichigara, but zvino nekurima ndakakwanisa kuti ndisevenze, ndikasevenza ndikavaka farmhouse yangu apo. Ndikasevenza ndikatenga tractor, ndikasevenza ino marori chaiwo ndave nemaviri, pane rori diki nerori hombe.
At first, I used to water my tomatoes with bucket water, and I realized there was a good ready market for the produce. Hence, I started doing rotational irrigation on the 8-hectare land. But what I have also realized is that my land is not adequate to achieve the dream of becoming a well-established farmer.
Isusu tinototsigirana nehurumende napresident, tinotovatsigira panyaya yeprogram yekurima. Isi tinotoda zvokutorima, hakuna chiro chinouya wakagara kutorima. Tototi kumayouth ese kana dei vanga vachitogona ngatirimei, kana papaita program yekuti tiwanewo minda totoda hade vambotitesta bosi sezvakaita panapa ndiri ngoirrigate about 6 hectares, but dei ndambozanawo kana ne50 hectares yangu mega mainyemwerera kuti tinamboona zvakadai, ndikangowana pane mvura chete, pane road yakanaka, ndinorima zvokuti hazvigoni, because panapa ndiri izvizvi vanhu vanoda cabbage vanoda chii, but handisi kukwanisa kuzviita zvese izvizvi, ndinoda kuti land yangu idiki.
Farm manager Ndangariro Ruvengo says at Zikamidzi farm they have their own way of doing things, which makes the farm play host to a lot of buyers.
Tanoita zvinhu zvikuru zvikuru, shedi iripo itori duku, tanoita shedi hombe kuti kana pagredwa matomasi because matomasi hadi zuva anofanira mushedi, senguva nekunaya tinoita shedi hombe, ndo plan yedu pano. Tiri kuona nhasi pane vari kuzotenga matomatoes panapa, zvinogara zvakadai here kana kuti nhasi zvitori zvishoma? Aiwa, zvona zvitori zvishoma, zvitori pasisa because mawikisa apfuura. Aiwa, pagara pakatozara vanhu, matomasi atiita mashoma, atoripo nhasi atori mashoma, pane zvinombosibuda.
The farm manager says their dream is to also construct a farm shed for the harvesting of the produce, as they normally deal with perishable horticultural produce. The farm boasts of more than 50 permanent workers, while contractual workers are engaged from time to time on the farm, where harvesting of tomatoes occurs thrice per week with an estimated 1,000 crates yield output. The farm manager says this year's yield has surpassed other years. Having worked with the farmer closely for 3 years, extension worker Mr. Albert Mlauzi says Ruvengo is one serious farmer who takes heed of advice from extension workers.
Pano pa purasi pavafambai pa Love More Ruvengo, mukomana wechidiki ari kusimukira, tingati munhu ane nhoroondo aimboita zvegold panning, vakaona kuti uku kune mari yekufembera uku, kune mari yese iri muivhu rineri, saka munhu iye zvino ari kurima zvirimwa zvakangosiyana-siyana zvinoenderana nenguva yatinenge tamupa dzidziso, kuti iye zvine nguva yakati iri kuda matomatoes, kana iri nguva yekuti yemvura yemudenga ane zvinhu zvaanorima zvakangosiyana-siyana.
The extension officer says the plant population at Zikamidzi ranges from 28,000 to 38,000, depending on the plant spacing adopted. Currently, Ruvengo adopted the 1.5 meter inter-row spacing by 30 centimeter in-row spacing, and the type of tomato planted is an early maturing variety, which is not prone to diseases nor susceptible to bacterial wilt. Soil sampling to determine the acidity or alkalinity of the red shurugwi soil was conducted, leading to the overall consensus that there is to be constant application of organic and inorganic fertilizers at regular intervals.
Panopaniswa mhando dzemafertilizer akasiyana-siyana zvichidhipenda netype yembeu iri kudzvarwa, sekumatomatoes zvese nekuchibage nembeu dzakangosiyana-siyana. Hongu ivhire panapa pane mared cells nemablack cells anova agara ane chikafu chakanaka, asi chimwe chinhu chatiri kuda kuti tiite panapa kutora masamples, kuti ivhire panapa tisati tatora masamples. Saka pari zvino tiri kuisa mafertilizer atiri kukurekomenda kuti ngatifanira kushandisa zvakati nezvakati, asi goho richibuda zvaro rakanaka nokuti mvura chaiyo tinoona yakakwana.
Laws says the application of fertilizer, normally conducted under the hill placement method, is done in consideration of the law of diminishing returns, which forbids the over-application of fertilizer in anticipation of increased yields. There has been a marked growth by the farmer, to an extent that he has grown to be a mechanized farmer with sophisticated equipment in the form of a bed maker and a hole marker, which digs holes when staking tomatoes. The extension worker says the fact that they are using crop rotation on the farm, pests and diseases are controlled as the host is changed, thereby disturbing their life cycle.
Tine farmers anokwana kuita 334 farmers dzati kusenza nadzo. Then vakadaro pane about 38 farmers dzakafanana navafambai vari kuita zvehorticultural farming vachishandisa mvura iri muna muteveko iyoyi. Asi pane musiyano muhombe pane those 38 farmers pana vafambai. Vafambai mukomana wechidiki ari kusumuka. Ndikati ndikapa muenzaniso wakasiyana siyana pano. Pane zvinhu zvavakanga vainazvo zvavakatanga vachishandisa. Iye zvinova kuita inonzi iyo mechanized farming. Vane zvinhu zvavakushandisa. Matanda atiri kuona ari panapa ese ari pano pamatomatoes aya ari kushandiswa, ari kuita zvekucherwa nemahole makers inova michina inodhura kutenga. Mariji ese atiri kuona ari panapa haasi kuiswa nemaoko, ari kushandiswa neatoti mabed makers avakatenga izvezvizvi vachishandisa matractors. Zvinova zvinhu zvokuti kana ukafunga kuti uzviite uri munhu wechidiki unogona kuona sekuti zvinobudisa mari, asi time yaunotanga kuzvishandisa zvinokutorera nguva diki diki kuti ukavhe almost a hectare unokwanisa kuidzvara ne1 day. Asi kana kuri kuti uri kushandisa maoko usingashandisi michina unogona kutora mazuva akawanda, plus zvinotikasira macost kushandisa machinery iyi. Kana kuri papurazi pane kuti paitwe mihomba yematomatoes iyi pasina kushandisa machinery, tinogona kuhaya vanhu vanogona kudarika even 100 kana 150 tichivabhadhara. Asi mechanized farming kuna vafamba iri kuvafambira zvakanaka chaizvo.
Buying certified seeds from seed houses, he has spared Tsikamidzi farm from experiencing any crop damages as a result of tomato diseases. Supplying the entire Midlands province might be a pipe dream if Ruvengo does not acquire land, as he is subsidizing his land through renting fields.
Chatinotodayo kuti kana tatowana zvekubatsirika tikatowana zviro zvakadero zvekutoti zvinotoya zvakatodero tinotoenda mberi. Isisu hatitombototarisiri kuti tingane age ino tingatoti tapuwa zvinhu totambisa zviro totorima nemainputs atete tatopuwayo. Zvakafanana necommand takadorima singatoti segorine ndakadondisa about 30 tons kuJMB.
The farm's success story is not only evident on the owner, as some of the employees are driving vehicles owing to the rewards of the farm. Ruvengo says he incentivizes the employees and they are all happy to be part of the farm.
Papurazi patiri palavhumufambai pakarongeka, zvinhu zvacho zvakata kurongeka. Purazi rakarongeka kudarika romurungu chako. Dzimba dzokugara togara mwe nimwe yake nechikomo chenje pamusoro apo. Mari dzedu topiwa nguva yakakwana. Ndakanzoshinzwa vakatopiwa bonus kudhara. Bonus takatopiwa more than times 2 pana taihora.
Behind the success of any man, there is a successful woman, but for Ruvengo, there are wives. He is a polygamous man from the apostolic sect. Ruvengo's wives say the farm has transformed their lifestyle, although the need to have a bridge linking the farm is still a challenge which requires attention.
Tikuita basa rekurima matomatisi. Ini ndoitwa maifambai. Basa iri tinoritsigira zvikuru zvekuti dai vamwe vari muno munzvimbo vagona kutitevedzera basa iri. Nekuti rakanaka, una chaunotambura muupenyu hwako nekuda kwevhu. Tinotendawo vamwe vanhu vanotibatsira. Asi tiri kutambura pakutengesa madomasi edu nekuda kwekushayiwa bridge. Vanhu vari kutambura kuyambuka. Nekuti patakagarawo pakashata pamusoro pekuti hapana nzira yakanaka. Nekutambura pekurima. Dzimwe nguvawo tiri kutopedzisira toenda kunorenda minda tichishayiwa pekurima. Nekuti mbeu dzedu dzinenge dzida kuchinjaniswa. Hadzidi kuti tirambe tichidzvara mbeu imwe chete panzvimbo imwe.
Toswera pano toita nezvemumunda. Asi tongomukawo togadzirira vana voenda kuchikoro. Isitoya kuno kubasa redu manheru kana tagona kuti time dzekuti dzokere kumba tinobika. Tonobikira vana vedu nenguva. Tikubatsirikewo chero pakudzidzisa vana zvese zvinhu zvose zvedu zvikuendeka nekuda kwekurima.
The wives say they are finding it easy to send their children to school using money from the farm. Buyers who normally throng the farm say Ruvengo has been their dependable supplier, producing not only a high quantity in tomatoes, but quality tomatoes which merchandise themselves.
Ndabva kukwekwe madomasi awo anondita zvakanaka sei nekuti chero makastoma angu ndatone mbiri vanhu vanotofunga kuti ndinda vamarima mukaona tichiramba tichiuya kudai pane pundutso dai papasina pundutso tisingavuyi.
Like any other supplier, Ruvengo believes the customer is king, thereby holding fort to his customers. Ruvengo says there is need for the government to give them as farmers special permits to allow for the importation of farm chemicals, as he normally buys chemicals from neighboring countries like South Africa and Zambia, although chemicals from Zambia are far cheap.
Ponde imwe challenge yatinayo ndozvokuti imwe mishonga panapa imwe mishonga tinoita zvigoizvo zvekuti matinofa pamashops tinotoshaya imwe mishonga imwe ine ichitowanikwa mhiro saka ipapo tachikumbira futi rubatsiro rwekuti kana taigona kuti tiwane mapemits ema-agri-chemicals takwanisa kuti tikwanise kuwana mapemits ekuti tinonohodha mishonga kuna naZambia neSouth Africa because apa vaizvizvi tinotobatisawo vamwe vatinenge vachindawo kuti ndovatotobatisa ndo kushanda kwatiri kutoita but tinotori kuti dei zvavo zvaigona takwanisa kuwana mapemits iwawo anopiwa vanhu ekuti vanhu vakwanise kunotenga mishonga yemuminda kubva neSouth Africa nakuZambia.
Chemical spraying is done using knapsack sprays with inhalers, as safety is emphasized in agriculture at recommended chemical dilution rates. Mr. Ruvengo says it has never been a walk in the park, as this type of business requires
It is a very good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime News right here on ZBC TV. My name is Arthur Mukotai and I'm with Abigail Magwenzi on Sign Language. Now to start this news bulletin, let's take a look at the stories making the headlines. Small grain farmers expected to receive support from government to promote food security. And in business news, people call for the increased setup of more bureau de change to reduce dependency on the informal markets. And in sport, Zimbabwe Swimmers cricket captain expresses disappointment with relevant authorities' ignorance to their plight. Now those are the stories making the headlines. And now let's take a look at those stories in greater detail. The Command Agriculture Program, which has transformed agricultural productivity in the country, is being broadened to support small grains, with farmers expected to receive support this August as part of efforts to promote food security.
Farmers in dry and semi-arid districts of the country, where maize is often affected by persistent droughts, will starting August this year receive support to grow small grains as part of measures to promote food security and reduce poverty. Acting Provincial Development Coordinator for Manicaland Province, Mr. Edgar Senza, says the broadening of Command Agriculture will improve food security in districts that include Buera, Mtare South, Chipinge South, and Nyanga North, where the growing of maize is largely unsuccessful due to droughts.
It is a very good development to broaden, the Command Agriculture to include, small grains, mindful of the fact that not all agroecological regimes are suitable for the production of maize grain. In Manicaland, for example, we have, the Sabi Valley area down to Chipinge South. That's region 4 and 5. We also have, in Mtare district, Mtare West and Mtare South. And in Bohera is the entirety of Bohera, as well as Nyanga North. These areas are suitable for the production of small grain.
Manicaland Command Agriculture Provincial Coordinator Colonel John Zingai says farmers who want to venture into small grains should register with his department in order to access inputs that will be availed starting end of August this year. The Command Agriculture Program is one of the success stories of the country's agriculture schemes being supported by government to promote food security and sustainability.
Now, leading African airline Kenya Airways has upgraded its aircraft for the Nairobi, Victoria Falls and Cape Town route due to increased demand and a development that has been described as a sign of confidence in the country's premier resort destination. Like Musa Fuli gives us those details.
Kenya Airways, which commenced Nairobi Victoria Falls flights in 2017, has upgraded its aircraft from an Embraer E190, which had a configuration of 12 business class seats and 84 economy classes, to a much bigger plane, a Boeing 737-800, in what has been viewed as a sign of confidence in Victoria Falls as a prime tourist destination. The Victoria Falls tourism industry highlighted the importance of additional seats into the destination and called for more efforts in marketing of the Victoria Falls International Airport, which has a 1.5 million passengers per annum handling capacity.
If you see an airline moving from a small aircraft to a bigger one, they are becoming, their business is growing, and this shows the confidence with our destination, Victoria Falls. This also helps most of the tourists who have taken a long way coming to Vic Falls from either East Africa to coming to Southern Africa. But because of this airline, it started last year but as you see now, this short period of time, they've already increased from a small aircraft to a bigger aircraft.
A lot of people have got confidence in us now, so if we do more marketing, that would be good for us, and us as lodges and hotels as well. We need to make sure that our service is up to standard.
Despite depressed figures during the first 3 months of the year, tourism operators in Victoria Falls are bullish of improved figures during the second half of the year. After registering 2.5 million tourist arrivals last year and over $1 billion in earnings, Zimbabwe is looking forward to another solid performance in 2019 to be spurred by renewed confidence in the destination, increased investments and the ongoing efforts to lure more tourists into the country. Lakmo Safuli, ZBC News, Victoria Falls.
7,000 people are diagnosed with cancer every year in Zimbabwe, while deaths from the disease now surpass those related to HIV and AIDS. These statistics paint a gloomy picture for the nation, but in that despair, hope is in the horizon, and it comes from the government's initiated universal health coverage policy, which is expected to culminate in the scrapping of user fees for cancer patients countrywide. The Minister of Health and Childcare, Dr. Obadiah Moyo, speaks on the new initiative.
Universal health coverage is part of our protocol as well. It's one of the issues that we are looking at, very seriously, and we've already come up with the various principles, for the national health insurance. This is still to be finalized, but the work is progressing well, and with national health insurance, it means that we'll be able to offer services to patients like cancer patients for free. It is essential that we also bring in cancer, into the equation of those who do not have to pay for that illness, for that disease, for that condition. So it is very critical that we move along with national health insurance in order for us to be able to also provide services, for those patients who have cancer. We've already covered dialysis, we've covered blood, we've covered the under 5, over 65, the mentally challenged, and so forth and so forth. So that's the way to go. But this can only come as a result of the national health insurance being in place for us to achieve universal health coverage through our primary health care system.
Now, the ZANU-PF Secretary for Administration, Dr. Albert Mpofu, is advising members of the Politburo that there will be a meeting tomorrow, 24 July 2019, at the party's headquarters at 10 in the morning. Meanwhile, the government chief whip, Comrade Popuraito Garapi, has called on ZANU-PF members of parliament, both the National and the Senate, to attend a caucus meeting tomorrow at the party's headquarters at 8:30 in the morning. Moving on with the bulletin, the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Energy and Power Development visited Triangle Ethanol Plant to assess and understand its operations in terms of ethanol productions in the face of energy crisis facing the country. Let's get details from Messi Bofu, who is on the line. Good afternoon, Messi.
Good afternoon. Here in Tirezi, the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Energy and Power Development, led by Mr. Joe Gebuza, visited the Triangle Ethanol Plant for a tour and assessment of the company's operations in terms of ethanol production. The Triangle Ethanol Plant is owned by Tonga Juliet Zimbabwe, which is the country's biggest sugar producer. They produce their ethanol from molasses. So before the team toured the facility, there were presentations made by the acting managing director of Tonga Juliet Zimbabwe, Mr. Aiden Mere, to the Portfolio Committee. In his presentation, Mr. Aiden Mere told the party committee that they are producing 40 million liters of ethanol per annum, and the company has got a joint venture with the National Oil Company of Zimbabwe in the name of Fuel Ethanol Company of Zimbabwe, where they are focusing on production and marketing of ethanol and blending of fuel. Mr. Aiden Mere also told the committee that they have got the capacity to produce more than 60 million liters. However, they are facing a number of challenges that include the financial challenges. The Pali Portfolio Committee, which was interested in energy issues, given the challenges that the country is facing, quizzed the company on a number of issues that includes the quality of ethanol that they are producing from molasses, the issue of pricing, and the need to expand the company's operations in terms of increasing ethanol production.
Some news will take a break, but here are some of the stories that you can look forward to. In business news, people have called for the increased setting up of bureau de change to reduce dependency on informal markets. And in sports news, Zimbabwe women's cricket captain has expressed disappointment with relevant authorities' ignorance to their plight. We take a break. Stay with us.
Stories of courage. I promise to fight for the living rights and to keep that promise. Of facing a challenge head on. The will to win against all odds. And of a desire to become the best.
You guys ready?
The stories never end with sport, kids, entertainment, music and more. Get connected to the greatest and best love shows with one of our incredible packages. Connect to Zimbabwe's leading entertainment destination, DSTV.
On Thursdays at 1800 hours
only on ZBTV, the pioneers of local content.
Welcome back to Lunchtime News. If you're just joining us, it's a warm welcome. Now moving on with the bulletin, teachers' unions say transfer of married couples to the same or nearby schools should be treated as a matter of urgency if the spread of HIV and AIDS is to be curbed. Teachers with disabilities also appealed to government to assist them in acquiring braille material and hearing aids, which are difficult to procure and very expensive when available. This came out when the teachers' representative bodies appeared before the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Public Service, Labour and Social Welfare to present their petition on various issues affecting their work yesterday. Let's hear some of them and what they had to say.
A teacher who is married to another teacher, one teacher is in Uganda, the husband or the wife is in Bikita, and you ask, why can't my wife come and teach at my school? It takes 5 years. In this day and age of HIV and AIDS, you want these people to be separated. Why does that happen? Simple policy, yes, it exists on paper. But the corruption that is within the corridors of power in the ministry make it impossible.
Now, I'm looking at somebody who has eyes with no challenges, somebody who can walk on his own, somebody who does not need this, and yet that person says it's not enough. How about for someone with a visual impairment, and yet this thing is mandatory? It's something for you members of parliament to think about. I'm also thinking of a person in a wheelchair. Someone who wants a wheelchair that will make him or her mobile independently. And we do not have such things here. And they have to be imported, and they have to be bought on his or her salary. That's something else. I'm thinking of a teacher with albinism who wants to be presentable, who wants, to inspire his or her children, the lotions and everything else that they may want, the glasses, and that has to come from their salary. And yet everybody else is saying it's not enough. What about these people?
From that story, we go straight into the business news. In our first story, Owen Mandova reports on the scrapping of foreign currency for local transactions, which has been called by the citizens to have the bureau de changes increased to serve people in order to reduce dependency on the informal markets. Some informal foreign currency traders who spoke to ZBC said many people resort to their services because their conditions are not stringent.
The move to abandon the multi-currency system by the government almost a month ago was widely commended for setting the economy on a strong growth trajectory. Subsequently, after the Reserve Bank liberalized the foreign exchange market, several bureaux de change were established across the country in order to save the requirements of foreign exchange market. However, informal traders of foreign currency say that many people are still approaching them in order to exchange foreign currency.
For now, turikuona kuti vanhu havasati vane confidence nemabureau de change aya, and also mari yacho haisati yakuwanika, forex haisati yakuwanika mabureau de change. At the moment mabureau de change aya achiri kungotenga ma-US dollars chete, but kuti atengesere vanhu vanenge vachida foreign currency haasi kutengesa. And maybe with time vanhu vachazobuildawo confidence yekuti vanenge vakuenda kunochinja mari yavo kumabureau de change.
Black market is not thrive because just source of employment
However, two economists, Professor Ashok Chakravarti and Mr. Persistence, view that more needs to be done in order to improve the operational functionality of bureau de change.
If you are a large-scale importer, you can go to the bank and you can access foreign exchange from there. But for the small trader, for the small business person, the man on the street who is now going to be doing cross-border trading, or he has a small business and he has a requirement of small amounts of foreign exchange, there is no proper system of access for that foreign exchange. And that's where the problem lies. Currently our situation is we have around 40 bureaus who have been licensed, and those bureaus, their functions are strictly restricted. The bureaus are restricted perhaps to giving some travel and holiday allowances and a few other things.
So we would need more bureau changes, more bureau changes in the economy so that they become more accessible, they are closer to the ordinary person, so they don't revert to the parallel market for exchange of foreign currency.
Professor Chakravat added that to serve the needs of the entire country, more than 200 bureau de change facilities are needed nationwide to drive away activity from these informal markets. Owen Mandova, ZBC News, Harare.
Now, the South African government has allocated an extra $4.24 billion to struggling state-owned power utility Eskom over the next 2 years so it can service its debt, a special appropriation bill has shown. Eskom, which supplies more than 90% of the country's electricity, but was forced to implement power cuts this year. The latest allocation, sourced from the government's National Revenue Fund, provides 26 billion rand for the 2019 to 2020 financial year and 33 billion rand for 2020 to 21 financial year. Finance Minister Tito Mboweni is expected to discuss the bill in Parliament today. Zimbabwe early this month paid $10 million United States to Eskom to reduce the debt order to the neighboring country's power utility for the resumption of power imports. Eskom is owed about $35 million United States by Zimbabwe. Cabinet last week resolved to waive duty on solar-related equipment and that new construction projects should have solar equipment installed to ease power shortages that have resulted in increased load shedding. Still in South Africa. South Africa's Rand rallied yesterday, brushing aside local political actions as investors increased bets on further monetary easing by the European and U.S. central banks. The Rand was 0.75% firmer at 13.8500 per dollar after closing at 13.9500 on Friday. Most of those gains came in the latter part of the session, with offshore investors in particular lured by the Rand's healthy carry return. The European Central Bank is expected to lower its key deposit rate on Thursday, while the United States Federal Reserve is expected to cut rates on July 31st, prompting investors to look into high-yielding emerging markets assets. South Africa's Central Bank, SARB, cut its own key rate last Thursday, but looks unlikely to ease further this year, and with inflation trending lower, the Rand and local bonds have continued to draw buyers despite a political storm brewing around President Cyril Ramaphosa. From South Africa, we move on to Nigeria, where Nigeria and German company Siemens have agreed a roadmap to increase Nigeria's reliable power supply to 11,000 megawatts by 2023, President Muhammad Buhari has said. The president of Africa's biggest economy said that at present, only an average of 4,000 megawatts reliably reaches consumers. He said Nigeria would work with Siemens to achieve 7,000 megawatts of reliable power supply by 2021 and 11,000 megawatts by 2023. Now that story brings us to the end of our business segment. We now cross over to our Bulawayo Montrose studios, where Pablo is on standby with news from around the country. Pablo, good afternoon, and it's all over to you now.
Many thanks, Arthur, and a very good day to you. Now, the people of Mangwe have been urged to support Comrade Hlalani Mguni of ZANU-PF in the upcoming by-election in the constituency, on of former legislator Comrade Obedingwa Mguni. The remarks were made by ZANU-PF Matabeleland South Political Commissar Comrade Jafet Dube at the burial of Comrade Jelas Ncube, who was declared Liberation War Hero.
Family, friends and veterans of the liberation struggle converged at Silima village in Mangwe constituency to give a befitting send-off to one of the gallant sons of the soil, Comrade Jelas Ncube, who died on the 15th of July after a long he was 60. Speaking on behalf of a visibly heartbroken family, Mrs. Valeria Ngomo said they have not only been robbed of a family man, but a fountain of wisdom.
Silahlekelwe asikwazi ukuthi lesi sikhala sizasivala ngani kodwa sithi inkosi yazi.
ZANU-PF Matabeleland South Political Commissar, Comrade Japheth Dube, took the opportunity to urge the people of Mount to rally behind the ZANU-PF candidate for the September by-election, Comrade Hlalani Mguni, words that were also echoed by veterans of the liberation struggle.
So asifuna plan njani efe sifuna ifezeki yiko thina sikhethe umama ukuthi le candidate yethu.
Men like the late Comrade Ncube deserve all the honor for making sacrifices which ensured Zimbabwe is emancipated from the shackles of colonialism, said Matabeleland South Minister of State Comrade Beniko Ncube.
These men won the independence of this country because they were firm and united. We also should emulate them and be united from the least to the greatest as we work towards revitalizing our economy.
The late Comrade Ncube was born on the 4th of September 1959 in Silima village in Mangwe. He did his primary education at Silima Primary School before later joining the liberation struggle as a Zebra combatant. He received his military training at Zambia at GTS camp. After in 1977, Comrade Ncube was deployed in Morewa, where he operated until ceasefire. After independence, he joined the Zimbabwe National Army and retired into civilian life in 1983. He then joined party structures in 1997 and became a branch vice chairperson from 2014 until his demise. Comrade Ncube is survived by wife Ethel Ngomo and 5 children.
The National Disability Expo, which is set to raise the awareness of disability as well as mobilize people with disabilities for social change, has been slated for the 31st to the 2nd of August at the City Hall in Bulawayo. In the studio this afternoon, we have invited Mr. Tafadzwa Matope, who is one of the organizers of the expo under the entertainment section, to tell us more about what they will be doing at the expo. Mr. Matope, a warm welcome to Lunchtime News. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, viewers.
Is it important to hold this expo?
National Disability Expo is very critical in the day-to-day of living of people with disabilities because we will be need of amplifying and raise awareness in the movement of disability sector.
We understand that you're part of the entertainment part of the expo. What have you lined up for us?
There's going to be a lot of entertainers. There's going to be a lot of performers on the day. We'll be having the Kapota band, which is going to perform on the expo. We are also going to have the Mutendi brass band. These people, they always support us when we have this kind of event annually.
Tafadzwa, before the interview, you did say there is a difference between people living with disabilities and with disabilities. Just to share with the listeners at home what this means.
Definitely, there is a huge difference between the people living with the disabilities and people with the disabilities. The difference is people living with the disabilities will be looking as a disability as a disease in a person. But disability is not a disease, or a disability is not a healthy issue. That's why we call people with disabilities, because it's just a condition which is in somebody. Whatever the person with a disability can be able to do, an able-bodied will not be able to do. Whatever an able-bodied be able to do, a person with the disabilities can be able to do. So we work interchangeably. That's why it's people with the disabilities, not people living with the disabilities.
Well, I must thank you so much for coming through to Lunchtime News, Tafadzwa.
My pleasure.
That's one of the organizers of the National Disability Expo, which is slated for the 31st of July to the 2nd of August at the City Hall in Bulawayo, Mr. Tafadzwa Matope. Now, the livestock situation is fast deteriorating in Matabeleland South, and there is need for drought mitigation to save the provincial head. Sifiso Swanda is on the line with more detail.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Well, as one would know that Matabeleland South is known to be a KK country simply because it is the beef basket of the country, so to say, given the number of animals that are generally there. However, the situation, the drought situation that is prevailing is threatening that source of livelihood for many people. And people have been trying through their own means to try and intervene. They've sold a few animals. Unfortunately, the prices have gone down, yet the business for stock feed has gone up significantly. Remember, in February this year, a 50 kg straight feed bag would cost something like $40. Right now, it's around $125 or so. Now, which is quite on the upper side, and it is becoming difficult for farmers using their own resources to effectively and efficiently mitigate against this situation. Again, knowing that they still have got to procure vaccines and dipping chemicals for their animals. So the appeal was that if government could intervene and support the farmers in a big way, they are saying that they would appreciate if they would get slightly cheaper feed. Here they are talking of survival rations, not.
Many thanks, Sfiso. Now, just moving on to sports news, Zimbabwe women's cricket captain Mary Musunda has expressed disappointment with relevant authorities' ignorance to their plight as players. Francis Nyamutamba with that.
Well, disappointment on the Zimbabwe cricket front following Zimbabwe by the International Cricket Council over issues to do with government interference. Now the players are speaking out against that suspension. We did manage to catch up with the Zimbabwe women's cricket team captain, that's Mary Ann Musonda, who just did highlight that the squad is extremely disappointed by the fact that they will no longer be participating at the global qualifiers that are supposed to be held in Scotland. Zimbabwe were scheduled to have two leaves for the global qualifiers this Thursday, and since the ICC set out that suspension against Zimbabwe, then it does mean that the Lady Chevrons will no longer be representing the country at that event. Well, the Lady Chevrons captain was saying that it is disappointing that they will not be participating, given the fact that they have worked so hard in preparing firstly for the regional qualifiers and then for the global qualifiers. And the captain saying that she feels.
Many thanks, Francis. And we'll end it here for this afternoon on Lunchtime News. Many thanks for having joined us. Good day.
Coming up in this edition, U.S.-Africa Business Summit underway in Mozambique. A team of international medical doctors from Italy to invest in Botswana's health sector. Also, African Cup of Nations tournament, too expensive to air for many African public broadcasters. And Malawi's Financial Intelligence Authority launches customer service charter. Those stories and more coming your way over the course of the next 30 minutes. Good day and welcome to this midweek edition of Eye on SADC with me, Ndishishia Mfungu. Up first, a 3-day U.S.-Africa Business Summit expected to reshape economic policies and investments on the continent is underway in Maputo, Mozambique. The 3-day summit brings together African heads of state and government, as well as more than 1,000 U.S. and African private sector executives, international investors, and multilateral stakeholders.
The U.S. private sector is seeking to take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement as its implementation is imminent. The Free Trade Agreement seeks to establish a single continental market for goods and services with free movement of business persons and investments, and thus paves the way for accelerating the establishment of the Continental Customs Union and the African Customs Union. The Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Commerce, Karen Kelly, told participants during the opening that her country's goal is to increase a two-way trade. U.S. imports from Africa have decreased by about 32% since 2014. Kelly attributed the decline to a number of factors, including cost of doing business, non-competitive policies, and inadequate infrastructure in some African countries. She said the U.S. government is aiming to synchronize capabilities of U.S. trade agencies, just as the African governments are trying to do with the ACFTA.
A team of international medical doctors from Italy says it has set its eye on investing in Botswana's health sector. Speaking after a meeting with the delegation from Botswana, led by Dr. Unity Dao, on the sidelines of the 12th U.S.-Africa Business Summit, the team of health experts shared that Botswana has favorable conditions for them to establish an operation office there.
Botswana kick-started its marathon to scout for potential investors by meeting a group of Italian-based international medical doctors who are eager to invest in Botswana. These are sought-after professionals who are leaders in providing healthcare services across the world. That track record in healthcare services speaks for itself. This meeting is one that they want to use Botswana as their launching pad in Africa.
I believe that that something positive is possible here. One of the areas we're looking at is pediatric cancer, okay? And therefore, when we look at the stats, that 80% of children with cancer in Africa die, while 80% or more than 80% of children with cancer in developed countries actually survive. You can see that there's a huge need. You can see that there's a huge opportunity actually for growth there. So we're looking forward to that.
The team also look forward to form a formidable partner with Botswana because of its track record in the health sector.
Botswana can not only be a good partner to us, but to many other companies. And what we do as a group is we partner with different investors besides ourselves and domain experts to look at opportunities in countries like Botswana.
Basically, we know that Botswana has one of the best healthcare system of Africa. So, and they deal very well with epidemic of AIDS. So we think, and now they want to focus on immunology, treatment of pediatric cancer, and in Italy we have a very good technology about that.
It's not only about healthcare. I'm looking for industries, for investments in all the wide sectors. And for those that are continuously just saying Botswana is about the 2 million population, we'd like to think of ourselves as much bigger than that, because we are land-linked. There is no other country that's as land-linked as we are in Southern Africa.
As the U.S.-Africa Business Summit kickstarts here in Mozambique, Botswana has already 1 foot ahead of others, as this meeting has ended up in promises that once followed up, they could bring up tangible results of partnership with Botswana.
On Montatile Botti with that report. Now, the African Cup of Nations, AFCON, which is scheduled to kick off in Egypt on Friday, is too expensive to air for many African public broadcasters. Overall, only 26 out of 54 African countries will broadcast the tournament, and here's why.
Many African countries struggle to show a continental event as the broadcast for this year's AFCON is overpriced. In recent years, the average price for free-to-air rights in SADC was less than $90,000 US, but this year the amount has escalated to about $800,000. This amount is regarded as unreasonable, especially in light of the current economic woes experienced by many countries on the continent. A tender was put out for an agency to manage the free-to-air rights, which were previously owned by a French-based company, Le Garde. The tender was then won by the African Union of Broadcasters, AUB, which is now managing the rights. With only a few % of Africans having access to satellite TV, if nothing is done, the majority of them may not watch their countries participating in this year's continental showpiece at all. According to AUB's project manager for news and content exchange, Audrey Kamsu, the AUB was informed by CAF that they won the bid very late, making it difficult to get sponsors. That's why they are now requesting higher amounts in order to recoup their investment. Until then, however, less than half of public broadcasters in Africa will be able to broadcast the tournament. Efforts to get comments from the Federation of African Football proved futile.
Disappointing, but good luck to all the Southern African teams participating. Now, Malawi's financial crimes-busting body, the Financial Intelligence Authority, has launched a customer service charter which will guide all its stakeholders, including members of the public, on how to work with the institution in fighting money laundering and other financial crimes. Launching the service charter in Lilongwe, Director of Pensions and Financial Services in the Ministry of Finance, Ambrose Mzoma, said the charter will also help increase the reportage of financial crimes by institutions and individuals.
The Financial Intelligence Authority was established by an act of Parliament as a national principal agency to fight financial crimes such as fraud and money laundering. And according to Ambrose Mzoma, Director of Pensions and Financial Services in the Ministry of Finance, the new customer service charter which it is launching should be a promise of how Financial Intelligence Authority is expected to save the public in ensuring a Malawi free from financial crimes.
And it will be upon you people, upon the customers, now to make sure that they follow up and they see whether Financial Intelligence Authority is really doing what they have put in the charter.
Atweni Juawei Abemoji is Director General of Financial Intelligence Authority and says, among other things, the charter empowers the public and reporting agencies such as banks, the police, and insurance companies to raise alarm on any suspected financial crime.
The general public under the new Financial Crimes Act also have the right to report to us directly if they suspect, if there is a suspicious transaction report which they think could involve a financial crime.
Meanwhile, many countries are grappling with white-collar crime such as public corruption, money laundering, financial institution fraud, bank fraud and embezzlement, and fraud against governments. And by establishing Financial Intelligence Authority, Malawi demonstrated commitment to tackle all this.
The right of engagement and participation of citizens is established in the Constitution of Lesotho, and a survey shows that only a minority of people in the country fail to have sufficient knowledge to actively participate in democratic processes. This was said by
they are supposed to serve. PISA has and will continue enabling the citizens of these unique nations to do so. The European Union will continue its support to make Lesotho a more stable, peaceful, equal and prosperous country, with Lesotho being eventually able to say, this is the Lesotho we want.
The leader in the compilation of the civic education curriculum, Professor Motlamele Kapa, says the success of civic education is dependent on cooperation, adding that there are 3 issues that guide the success, which include civic knowledge and civic disposition.
Without civic education, without knowledge, you can't have skills to do that which citizens of any country have to do, as it were. The other important aspect of it is that it gives you civic disposition, which means those traits which are necessary in a democracy.
Meanwhile, on behalf of Lesotho government, the Deputy Prime Minister Honorable Munyane Muleleki pointed out that the sharing of views and ideas by these stakeholders symbolizes democracy. He further said the stakeholders must take this as an opportunity to make a difference collectively.
We have heard about the meetings held on and around this mountain. It is now time for us as multi-stakeholders, varied stakeholders in Lesotho, to spend the next 2 days putting together ideas from our various constituencies to come up with a common direction.
Tomorrow, as the forum will be coming to an end, the stakeholders will take their declarations to the top of Tababsu Plateau to present them at the Mushoshowan Pito area.
Lesotho TV's Mpolo Kang Motebe with that report. You are watching Eye on SADC, still ahead. Second edition of the Ministerial Conference on Maritime Security takes place in Mauritius. Also, Zambians honor the memory of late President Frederick Chiluba. And the Central Bank of Eswatini launches an investigation into the operations of banks. These and more stories to follow, but let's take a quick look at today's economic index. Many thanks for staying with us. We continue with more news right here on Eye on SADC. Now, on the eve of the Ministerial Conference on Maritime Security in the Western Indian Ocean, senior executives from participating countries and regional and international agencies are pulling in their experiences and expertise, reviewing previous year engagement implementation. Now, the declaration of ministers expected tomorrow is being finalized.
In preparation of the Ministerial Conference on Maritime Security, numerous meetings have been organized since last week, a way to coordinate the results of the various initiatives put in place in the region to safeguard the marine space. The meeting of senior executives is thus the penultimate stage before the Ministerial Conference tomorrow, an opportunity for last-minute discussions and the presentation of proposals to delegates. They included financiers and bankers for whom maritime safety is essential for the development of the region.
the issue of maritime security is important because it actually does affect everything we do. If you think, for example, on issues of trade, Mauritius is now working very hard with the Africa policy to try to trade more closely with the African continent. And you can imagine the level of disruption if you had pirates all over the place. So in that regard, we think that maritime security, if managed properly, should enhance trade and greater integration, not just of Mauritius with the African continent, but also boost trade generally in the Indian Ocean region.
During the ministerial conference, it will be mainly about sustaining plans already initiated, following the example of the maize program for the promotion of maritime safety, funded by the European Union to the tune of 42 million euros.
Zambia's first president, Kenneth Kaunda, says late second president Frederick Chiluba's contribution to the country's development has remained significant even in his death. Now, Dr. Kaunda says Dr. Chiluba's leadership and contribution to Zambia will continue to be remembered. The first president was speaking to ZNBC News shortly after laying wreaths at the presidential burial site during the 8th memorial service for Dr. Chiluba.
It's 8 years down the line since his demise, but memories of Second Republican President Frederick Chiluba's contribution to the country continue to linger among Zambians. Today, President Edgar Lungu led several people who gathered at Memorial Park to celebrate the life of Dr. Chiluba, who died on June 18, 2011. Speaking to journalists after laying wreaths, first Republican President Kenneth Kaunda said the late Dr. Chiluba's contribution to the country will continue to be remembered.
His contribution continues to stand out. We're proud of his contribution, and it can't be forgotten at all. It continues to be managed. May all Zambians continue to remember, and may God bless and guide all that he did for us all.
And fourth Republican President Rupia Banda thanked the organizing committee for arranging the 8th memorial service for Dr. Chiluba.
I'm so glad that you have all come. I'm so glad that all our leaders, particularly our leader, President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, came here to lay a wreath.
And former First Lady Vera Chiluba has described the memorial service for Dr. Chiluba as the best ever.
It was the best memorial service of Mr. Chiluba ever been done. And I just want to thank you, the committee, the people, all of you, the media, for taking part in this special occasion. We came to celebrate Mr. Chiluba.
Dr. Chiluba's son, Wellington, also shared thoughts about his late father.
The memory of our father, as you can see, is nothing that you can tarnish. He served. The first president, the first Republican president came through. Now, if you start from there, clearly you can see that politics is politics. There's no need for personal animosity. Number one, he came here.
Others that laid wreaths in memory of the late second Republican president included former Vice Presidents Enoch Kavindele and retired Brigadier General Godfrey Nyanda.
The Central Bank of Eswatini has launched an investigation into the operations of banks when it comes to the mortgage loan process. Now, this follows increasing concerns from members of the public on the alleged practice by banks in the kingdom.
There has been a rising number of concerns from the public on the operation of some banks when it comes to mortgage loan process. This follows allegations of irregular practices by some banks when it comes to the mortgage sector and repossession of property. The central bank's head strategy and communications, Tulele Kina, says they will do an investigation after all concerns have been received.
There are certain issues in the relationships between the banks and their customers that to some extent are not satisfactory for the clients. Maybe in various areas, it may be, like you said, areas of repossession of their properties. Sometimes it may be the issues of the calculation of their interests. Sometimes in certain benefits that may have been promised to them that people are either they are no longer receiving those benefits, or there have been some repercussions coming out of the benefits that people were not expecting. It's various types of concerns that you are receiving. So we took it upon ourselves as the regulator to say, based on the number of complaints that we are getting, let us get deep into it, try and understand the source of the concern.
Means of having the Bankers Association on this proved futile. When conducting Fikilenkosi of the Bankers Association, she referred us to the chairperson, Dennis Mbingo, whose phone rang unanswered during the time of compiling this report. Kina says customers who have concerns about financial sector's operations are welcome to submit them with the Central Bank of Eswatini.
The Malawi government has called for peaceful coexistence between refugees and Malawians. The remarks have been made during a Sports Day festival held in Dzaleka camp as part of promoting peace and unity between refugees and Malawians. Now, speaking to NBC, Senior Administrative and Operations Manager in the Office of the Commissioner for Refugees in Malawi, Samuel Duncan Maloa, said government will always see to it that there is peace and unity between refugees and Malawians, as well as among refugees themselves. Owen Mavula reports.
Thursday, Malawi joins the rest of the world in commemorating World Refugee Day to raise awareness of the struggles refugees face around the world. In the run-up to the event, the UNHCR in Malawi organized a Sports Day event at Dzaleka camp, where teams from Malawi and the camp came together to interact as part of peace building. Speaking at the event, Senior Administrative and Operations Manager in the Office of Commissioner for Refugees in Malawi, Samuel Duncan Maloa, hailed the UNHCR for organizing the event, saying it complements government's effort in ensuring peace and stability.
Our major aim, or one of our major aims, is to ensure that there is harmonious and peaceful coexistence between refugees and the neighboring Malawians.
In her remarks, UNHCR representative for Malawi, Monique Ekoko, said the event is part of showing the world to say there are people who need support and also celebrate their resilience.
This year is the year for the African Union celebrating refugees, asylum seekers, IDPs also. So we are combining all of that to show to the world that there are people who need support, there are people that we have to celebrate their resilience.
That was a look at the weather conditions. Now, to end this bulletin, here's a recap of the top stories. U.S.-Africa Business Summit underway in Mozambique. A team of international medical doctors from Italy to invest in Botswana's health sector. Also, African Cup of Nations tournament too expensive to air for many African public broadcasters. And Malawi's Financial Intelligence Authority launches customer service charter. Well, that's all the time we had for you in this edition. Be sure to join us again tomorrow as we continue to bring you more on what's transpiring here in Southern Africa. But until then, from myself, Ndishisha Mfungu, and the rest of the team, it is goodbye and pleasant viewing ahead.
African drum, then bira, then marimba, and now the African story joins the African song. Seen through African eyes and told through African voices. The authentic African story through a trusted